They said the next thing would come from the skies, but we were looking in the wrong direction. Because as it came, the next threat to humanity didn't come from up there. It came from below. And these monsters would come. And they would come to take us all. So we decided, in order to beat these monsters, so we would create monsters of our own. So thanks, yeah, that's the premise for this movie, Pacific Rim, the 2013 movie directed by Guillermo del Toro, obviously one of my favorites, and it is monsters, mecha, spliced into one, and this is a perfect idea of what a popcorn movie should be. This is the movie that should have been Transformers, and the fact that it's still not is kind of baffling in a way. So before we see Pacific Rim Uprising, we're gonna see the original, and I still think this movie's really good. This is probably one of my favorite movies of 2013. This is a pure spectacle film. This isn't a movie about characters, plot turns, or, emotion. This is about being visceral. This is about being the best movie a child can see at the age of 8 and still like it at the age of 28. This movie is freaking awesome. The story, quite simply, is the fact that we have kaijus, which are monsters, coming in the break in the Pacific Rim, roll credits. And the only way to defeat them is we have to create robot mechas to beat them into submission. Problem is, we can't have one person pilot a robot because it goes into sensory overload and you will go nuts and you'll start bleeding from orifices and you will be in pain. So they develop a system which is called the drift, which two pilots interact with each other and figure out how to command both sides of the robots. And after defeating what we believe was the last of them, more come out, and for some reason, unbeknownst to anyone in the known universe, the politicians decide we don't want to make any more robots to defeat the monsters, so we're going to build a wall that is proven not to hold the kaiju back, but we're still not going to build more. This is not a movie where you should be thinking a lot. This is a movie where you're going to have fun watching monsters get punched in the face. And that's where this movie is really good at. Guillermo del Toro is a monster specialist. As I've done in my reviews for Mimic, Blade 2, and I think I've done one more, I can't remember right now. And the kaijus are actually so detailed that it kind of makes me wonder why we haven't had more of this. And it's done so well. This is a movie that's once again, not about story, it's about spectacle. And it delivers. Not only does it deliver well, it is so beautifully done. There are easily moments in this movie. The first fight scene with the Jaegers and the Kaiju with Gypsy Danger is beautifully done. I'm not gonna lie, when I saw this movie the first time, I was wondering why the hell wasn't the Transformers like this? It was graceful, and also it had impact to it. Like, everything showed that this was a robot that had weight to it, whether it's like, oh, we're gonna go up slow and then BAM! The punch to the face. There is a fight scene in the middle of the movie involving Gypsy Danger and two Kaiju that, holy cow, it is freaking gorgeous. And it's just like, we still haven't been able to replicate that, and this is almost 5 years later. On the acting side, we have Pentecostes, played by Idris Elba, who's done very well. Charlie Hunnam playing Raleigh Beckett, who's well. Miko and Charlie Day is in it. Ron Perlman is as Hannibal Chow, which he wasn't supposed to be in this movie. For those of you who didn't know, is supposed to, I believe, be an actor of Asian descent. But they backed out, so Perlman got in it, and he absolutely freaking lit up the screen whenever he was there. That's pretty much it. We have to beat up these monsters, and that's the whole movie. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's done well and if it's done beautifully, and it is. The amount of detail in the movie does remind me so much of an anime. It's not even funny. And one in particular anime, if it doesn't take from this show, I don't believe it. Before we go into comparisons, let's go into the bad. The characters don't have a lot to do. Charlie Hunnam in particular, the main character, really doesn't have much to do, because he's kind of, while he is the main character, he literally feels like Tom Hardy in Mad Max Fury Road, and he's kind of the main character, but he's kind of the one we see everything through. His plight is not the most important. The most important is Miko, who has a absolutely beautiful scene where we see why she hates the Kaiju. And that is by far more terrorizing than anything we've ever seen in any of the other Transformers movie or any mech movies like this. Idris Elba's character is by far more interesting, because we have to find out what he's doing, and it's not Charlie Hunnam's fault. He's not the most interesting. It's just the fact that he's just made that way. The movie is structured a little bit like a sports movie, when is saying, oh, you used to be good at this sport, you're not, and then we're going to have a rival, and then that doesn't really peter out a lot. Also, what doesn't make a lot of sense is they make this big point about, oh, you have to be drift compatible, and then they drop it altogether in the second act for the finale. But even the finale subverts what we get in this type of genre. With Miko and Charlie Hunnam, well, I'm not going to say it, it's kind of a different ending than what these types of movies show us. Now, in case you didn't know, here's where I get the references. And one of the things I don't like about how people depict this movie or talk about how, like, oh, it's based on, it's very heavily influenced on anime, which it is. And they go through the montages of whatever anime. No. There's only one anime this steals from, and it is Evangelion. Between the drifting, which is the compatibility from Evangelion, the syncing up, to the Jaegers, which can be Evas, and the Kaiju, which can be angels, and the simple fact that it's just, there's no freaking way you cannot connect the dots, especially since the Kaijus are coming to destroy the Earth. I believe this really heavily goes more on the Evangelion side than any other anime out there. If there was another thing I'd have to say bad about it, is it has a little bit of pacing problems, but that's really not an issue. Charlie Day's character and the other scientists are really funny. I will say it does have a mid-credit scene that proves that you don't really need mid-credit scenes in every movie. But this is really good. This is giant. This is about robot monsters beat each other up and then call me the next day if we're all alive. There also is a scene from Idris Elba, which is probably the best, rally up scene since Independence Day. When he says we're canceling the apocalypse. This isn't a movie about, once again, characterization. It's not a movie about, whose growth is the more. This is a movie about beating people up. This is what popcorn movies are made to be like. Pacific Rim, easy 8.5. Best movie I've seen since in 2013. This is what robot movies should be when they're live action. So for that, that's all I have to say, and hopefully I'll come back today later with Pacific Rim Uprising, and from there, bye.